Alright, this is Deuteronomy 25 in the MacArthur Study Bible. Let's begin. If there is a dispute between men and they come to court, that the judges may judge them and then justify the righteous and condemn the wicked, then it shall be, if the wicked man deserves to be beaten, then that judge will cause him to lie down and be beaten in his presence according to his guilt, with a certain number of blows. 40 blows he may get, and may give him, and no more, lest he should exceed this and beat him with many blows above these, and your brother be humiliated in your sight. And you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. If brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall go into her, take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it shall be that the firstborn son which she bears will succeed to the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. But if the man does not want to take his brother's wife, then lets the brother's wife go up to the gates. Then let his brother's wife go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to my husband's brother refuses to rise up a name to his brother in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. And then the elders of his city shall call him and speak to him. But if he stands firm and says, I do not want to take her, then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, remove his sandal from his foot, spit in his face, and answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel the house of him who had removed his the house of him who had his sandal removed. There we go. And if two men fight together, and the wife of one draws near to rescue her husband from the hand of the one attacking him, and puts out her hand and seizes him by the genitals, then you shall cut off her hand, your eyes shall not pity her. You shall not have in your bag differing weights, a heavy and light. You shall not have in your house differing measures, a large and a small. You shall have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure, that your days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. For all who do such things, all those who behave righteously or unrighteously are an abomination to the Lord your God. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Egypt, how he met you on the way and attacked your near ranks, all the stranglers at your rear, when you tried and when you were tired and weary, and he did not fear God. Yep, so remember what he did. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord your God has given you rest from your enemies all around in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess as an inheritance, that you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget. And may God bless the reading of the word. Let us look at it. It'll probably be pretty brief. There's not a whole lot of notes here. Alright, but in the first 3 verses, you have this dispute between men, and then the judges are going to judge them, and if the wicked man is guilty, then the wicked man gets beaten, but he can only get 40 blows. Alright, so corporal punishment for crimes committed was to be equitably carried out in the presence of the judges, and was limited to 40 stripes. Yeah. Now, I think, the Jews actually did 39 stripes or whatever. That way they don't go over the 40. So, and Paul in the New Testament said that he got 5 times. I think he got 40 lashes minus 1, so 39, listing his persecutions that he went through for the cause of Christ in 2 Corinthians 11. So, anyway. And then you get to verse 4. You shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. So, basically, I think I actually read in the Endearing Word commentary on this verse. But basically, don't keep the ox from eating the grain that it's treading out. And this also means a worker must be allowed to enjoy the fruit of his own labor. And in the New Testament, Paul actually uses this verse here to say that a pastor should get paid for his ministry, for preaching the gospel. Yeah, I think that's 1 Corinthians 9. Yeah, a pastor should be paid for his work as well. But Paul didn't exercise that right, even though he had it, but he didn't exercise it, since he didn't want to be a burden to the Corinthians, so he worked for his own money. Yep. Alright, and then you get to this topic in verses 5 through 10, the liberate marriages. I don't know if that's how you say it, but from the Latin levere, which is husband's brother. So those marriages provided that the brother of a dead man who died childless was able to marry the widow in order to provide an heir. And those were not compulsory marriages in Israel, but they were applied as strong options to brothers who shared the same estate. And obviously this required that the brother be unmarried and desired to keep the property in the family by passing it on to a son. Yep. So, and then Leviticus 18:16 and 20:21 talk about adultery with a brother's living wife is forbidden. So you can't do that. So adultery is prohibited. So, but in this case where there would not be adultery, where the brother of the husband who died could marry the widow if the brother was not married. Though not compulsory, not compulsory. There you go, compulsory. Now I only said it right. This practice reflected fraternal affection. If a single brother refused to conform to this practice, he was confronted with contempt and humiliated by the elders. And then the perpetuation of his name as a member of the covenant people witnessed to the dignity of the individual. And see Numbers 27, 4 through 8, which gave the daughters the right of the inheritance when there was no sons in the family. It's reasonable to read no child then no son. Yep. And I think there's some cross references here with Tamar and Genesis 38, and then the Boaz and Ruth marriage in Ruth 4. Yeah, that marriage in Ruth is an example of this. Yep. Now there was a person ahead of Boaz that was supposed to marry Ruth, but he refused to do it. Yeah, but Boaz stepped in and did that. He fulfilled this duty here. So, carried on the family line of Naomi. Yeah, because Naomi lost her husband and her 2 sons. Yeah. So, anyway. Yep, and ultimately that would be the Messianic line continuing on. Yep. Amen. Alright. And then, And basically, if the brother refused to marry the widow, yeah, get publicly humiliated. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The wife would remove his sandal and then spit in his face. Yeah. Well, probably because, because I guess probably by refusing to do it, this is probably more of a sinful, selfish thing, And by refusing to do it, he is going against God's commands. If he's able to do it, and well, it does say if he doesn't do it, then he's gonna get this humiliation. Yeah, because basically the concern here is, carrying on the family line. So that's why you have this. Gotta carry on that family line. Yep. Alright. And if two men fight together, and the wife of one of the men draws near to rescue her husband, and get and puts her hand on the genitals of the man that's attacking her husband, yeah, then this lady's hand gets cut off. What? What? Yikes. Now, the consequence of the Immodest Act was the only example of punishment by mutilation in the Pentateuch. So, I guess because of where she put her hand, grabbing the guy by the genitals. Yeah. No, not the best thing. Now, I actually went ahead and read what Prager had to say, so in the Prager video, Lord willing, Prager's going to talk a little bit more about this and how he looks at it. So, he thinks this is more in line with the eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth or whatever. That it's probably mainly just monetary retribution and it's not actually literal. So, I don't know, maybe. But that's what's coming up, so stay tuned. Alright, and then you shall not have in your bag differing weights, a heavy and a light. So basically the weights and measures of trade, they were to be kept equitably so that people were not cheated. Obedience meant prosperous years in the land. So basically you better not be cheating your customers or who you're trading with. And this principle can be applied even today. You better not cheat the people that you're selling stuff to. Yeah, you better not be dishonest in your sales and all that also. Yeah, especially if you're a used car salesman who does that. You would be going against this and you shouldn't. In this, or being bribed in order to pervert justice, probably also, and this is probably what happened in the temple, whenever you had the money changers doing their business. Not only were the religious leaders getting rich off of that whole thing, but you probably had this commandment being violated even in the temple as well. So I wouldn't be surprised since Jesus overturns the tables of those money changers and kicks them out, and he says, you made this house, which should be called a house of prayer, into a den of thieves. And this probably could have been one of the ways that they were making it a den of thieves. Yeah. So it probably, so I don't know if that could have been the case, but it probably was pretty likely. Alright. And then also they're told to remember what happened with the Amalekites. Yeah, remember what the Amalekites did to them in Exodus 17. When they're heading to Sinai, they have this battle with the Amalekites. And Moses, when his arms are raised up, by Aaron and Hur, I think those were the two guys. When his arms were raised up, Israel prevailed over the Amalekites, but when his arms fell down, the Amalekites were winning. Which I guess the point is, ultimately that their strength and their power comes from God. It doesn't come from them or their, military or their strategizing. So their power and their ability to fight came from God. I think that was probably the point. Yep. So anyway, but remember what these enemies did. Yep. And whenever you get into the land, you need to remember this, and you need to blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Yep. Whenever you enter that land, you better blot them out. Don't forget. Yep. So the admonition to remember the treachery of the Amalekites was repeated to the new generation, as we talked about with what happened with them in Israel in Exodus 17. Execution, and they were to be taken out, I guess, as judgment for, what they did there. Yep. And in 1 Samuel 15, you'll see that it was not carried out as it should have been by King Saul. God told King Saul to go kill all the Amalekites, but no, he did not. He spared the king, Agag, and even some of the livestock and the spoil and all that, and he wasn't supposed to. And then when confronted about that with Samuel, he was like, well, the people wanted the livestock or whatever. We're going to, I think, use the best to sacrifice to the Lord, and I feared the people, so something like that. And then God ultimately rejected Saul as king of Israel. And I think the Holy Spirit was taken away from him or whatever. Yeah, well, that was not the first time he was disobedient, but anyway. Yeah, but you have him failing to fulfill that command. And then later on, towards the end of 1 Samuel, David, after he can't go to fight with the Philistines, he goes back to the town that he and his people were staying in, Ziklag. And when he's back, he finds that the city is ransacked and burned, and his wives and families and all that were taken. So they go and hunt down the Amalekites and overcome them and get all the spoil back and the people back and all that. I don't remember if David destroyed all the Amalekites, but he did do. I don't remember. I don't remember if he did, but anyway. I think that's 1 Samuel 30, if you want to check that out. So, alright. But anyway, that's what you got. Yep. So, that's actually the end of chapter 25. I mean, there's not a whole lot of notes here. Alright, but Lord willing, I'll see what Prager has to say next time. God bless you, and may the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ be with you all.